presentation number 4 in regards to John Stuart Mill's utilitarianism. Now, utilitarianism, the essay by John Stuart Mill, is written to provide support for the value of utilitarianism as a moral theory and to respond to misconceptions about the theory itself. Mill defines utilitarianism as a theory based on the principle that the actions are right in proportion as they tend to promote happiness, and they are wrong as they tend to produce the reverse of happiness or unhappiness, which is basically the prefix of that word itself. Mill defines happiness as pleasure that are rooted in one's higher faculties, or should be weighted more heavily than baser pleasures or more simple things that people tend to enjoy. Furthermore, Mill argues that people's achievement of goals and ends such as virtuous living should be counted as part of their happiness. Mill argues that utilitarianism coincides with natural sentiments that originate from humans' social nature, basically our biology, how scientists would say humans evolved to naturally or normally do these things, kind of like a force of habit. Therefore, if society were to embrace utilitarianism as an ethic, people would naturally internalize these standards as morally binding. In other words, they feel that they don't have a choice, that they're kind of like forced to do it themselves or subconsciously doing it without them even realizing it, kind of like a bad habit that they can't drop. Mills argues that happiness is also the sole basis of morality, or people determining what's right from wrong, not necessarily based on religion, but based on what I just stated of the urge to do things, or not knowing you're doing it and you're doing it. For it's a habit, something you can't really control, and people never really desire anything but happiness because of those reasons. He supports this claim by showing that all other objects that people desire are either a means to happiness or included in their definition of happiness, because ultimately every single decision that a human makes is with the intention to be happy. No, there has never been a case naturally or non-defectively where someone wanted to be unhappy or made a decision to be unhappy. That just doesn't happen. He explains that the length that the sentiment of justice is actually based on utility, and that rights only exist because they are necessary for human happiness. Now, the theory of utilitarianism has been criticized for many reasons. Obviously, if you're going to pose them like this, you're going to have people who disagree with you naturally. It's not to not expect, especially when it comes to John Mill. Critics hold that it does not provide an adequate protection for individual rights, that not everything can be measured by the same standard, and that happiness is more complex than reflected by Mill's theory. Mill's essay represents his attempt to respond to these criticisms and thereby provide a more complex, nuanced moral theory. And he answers these questions through the 5 chapters that comprise of his essay. His first chapter serves as an introduction. In its second chapter, Mill discusses the definition of utilitarianism and presents some misconceptions about the theory itself. The third chapter is a discussion about the ultimate distinctions or rewards or the benefits that utilitarianism can offer. And the fourth chapter discusses the methods of proving the validity of utilitarianism. And finally, in his fifth chapter, Mill writes about the connection between justice and utility and argues that happiness is the foundation of justice. As we all know, people believe that if you find justice, you can find peace. People getting what they deserve, or actually getting what you deserve in the end. And that's ultimately what makes up his argument.